All right, where are we at today?
We're at the Devil's Lake Cemetery right now. We're about a mile or a half a mile from downtown.
Okay.
And this is the gravesite of my grandfather, Julius Keller. My mother is a Keller, seeing that there. And my grandfather farmed up by Garski back in the later years, probably in the late 20s and early 30s. And my grandfather passed away in 1939. He moved to Devil's Lake here, and he passed away here. And next to him is his second wife there, and she'd passed away in 1963. And this is his second wife. His first wife is buried over at Fulda. I don't know if you know where Fulda is at there. Yeah, there's quite a story behind that of his first wife dying in that. I don't know if you're interested in that there. Well, his first wife was pregnant, and she was about 6 months along, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor told her that they got to take the baby. If they didn't take the baby, both of them were going to die. Well, in that meantime, they were in a wagon, and my grandmother got pitched out of the wagon with the baby. And anyway, they took him to the hospital and stuff. And my grandmother, and the baby passed away. See, and my grandfather had 10 kids. They farmed over at Fulda at that time, and then when they left there, they moved over to Garski to farm. See, and that's where they were at that time. And then my grandfather moved to Devil's Lake after he retired farming.
Much about your grandfather?
I spent time out on the farm with him, and I'm looking there, and I must have been about 8 or 9, 10 years old, and I spent 2 weeks out at the farm with him. Never forgot it, see, with him. At that age, you're always monkeying around, helping him do things and that there. Very nice. My grandfather was a very nice man, and my grandmother, my step-grandmother was very nice too. And I enjoyed going out there. And they had horses, they farmed with the horses, and they had cattle, sheep, turkeys, cows, and they had chickens, everything. The farmer was self-sufficient back in them days, see. And that's how they farmed, and like I said, when he retired, he sold the farm and that and moved to Devil's Lake.
Okay. So do you remember when he died?
Yes, I remember when he died. I remember, back in them days, when my grandfather died, now today they have him at the funeral home. But at that time, he was in his own home for about 3 days. And people came in to visit it all the time, and that their day and night they were there. And like I say, after that, they moved to the church and had the burial services at the church. My grandmother was alive. She still lived in Devil's Lake. My step-grandmother did. And all the kids were gone then. My step-grandmother had 6 kids of her own, plus the 10 my grandfather had, see? So there was a big family between there, yeah. And my mother was in the big family, see, and my mother and them worked in town and that, off of the farm and stuff. But they all went back and helped on the farm all the time, in the threshing season and that. Farming was big back then, Yes, and I loved my grandmother, my step-grandmother. I never did get to know my real grandmother, see. And she was, I think, probably in the 20s is when she died, see. And she's buried at Fulda, Yeah. And my dad and mother are buried out here at this cemetery too, so we can go over and take a look at that if you want to.
All right.
Okay?
That's good.
Okay, now we're still at my mother and dad's grave site at Devil's Lake Cemetery. This is my dad was born in 1893 and he died in 1963. My mother was born in 1898 and died in 1993. My dad came over to Fulda from Odessa, Russia, when he was 18 years old and couldn't speak a bit of English, and that's where my dad helped my grandfather after he met my mother there, see, and that's where he worked on the farm and stuff, see, with my grandfather and that. And then, like I said, my dad worked for the railroad. When they moved to Devil's Lake, he worked for the Great Northern Railway. and he worked there till he retired, and he died after 4 years after he retired. See, so he, like I said, and when we get back down to the house, I'll tell you, about that. But on here, like I say, my mother and my dad, they met maybe 4 times, and that time and got married. Oh, wow. Yeah. And he ended up with, we had 13. There were 13 kids, but 2 died, So there's 11 of us, 11 kids, and 10 of, my older brother just died about 2 years ago, and my baby brother died about 3 years ago. He was 58 when he died. My older brother was 84, 85. And my older brother died of a heart attack, and my younger brother died of cancer, see in there. So right now there is 10 of us, 10, 11, no, 9 of us alive. And we're all now coming in there, we're retiring, and I have a sister that lives in Grand Forks. It's going to be, I think, 65 in a few years. And then all of us, if God's willing, that we'll all celebrate 50 years of marriage in about 4 years. That all of us will be married 50-year marriage in there. Then on the other side of this stone is all the kids that are on there that my mother and dad had are on the other side. Oh. See, and the babies, 2 of the babies were born, and then I think the twin, my brother Julius is a twin, and he lived about 6 weeks before he passed away. And then the other baby lived maybe a week, see, and that there. So but the rest of the time, the man upstairs has been very good to us, good to the Kurtzes. So like I said, there were 11 of us all the time, in that house when we get down there. So like I say, the man upstairs has been good. So if you want to look at the back side of it where my sister had them names into the stone.
There's John, Joseph, Betty, Wally, Balzer, Tim, Rosella, Julius, Anthony, Cass, Marion, and Richard.
That's the family right there. And the names of the other 2 that had passed away had babies are on there, see, with it.
Do you remember the memorial service for your baby siblings that died?
A little bit. Not, the one that lived for about 6 weeks, the first one, no. But my brother's, Julius's twin, I remember some of that, see. And that wasn't such a big thing, at 6 weeks. I think there was a carpenter that lived right around us where we lived, and he made a box for him, and he's buried over here, a short way away from here, see. So they're all out here. The 2 babies are buried over there, and my mother and dad are here, see. And my brother Richard is buried in Grand Forks. My older brother John is buried in a cemetery at Mandan, the government cemetery there, the National Guard cemetery there. My brother is buried there. So that's most of it, out here with our family, It's it was hard back in them days with a lot of kids. So we can talk about that, growing up and that. But like I said, we had good times too and a lot of bad times. Okay. But enjoyed every minute of it. And so I start clipping these trees up higher. So you can see now, when you look here, you can see a long distance. Right. See, yeah, and people like when they can see people. Yeah. And you go around, you see a lot of live flowers planted now by all the graves and stuff. See, they come out and they water them. The thing's got water all through it. And they come and plant the flowers and come out and water them in that. Yeah. It's just a nice place to walk around. A lot of people walk through here.
That is nice. I'm going to move your statue back.
Sure. See, when my brother Julius' baby, the twin, died, I was about 7. I think he's about 70 or 71, see, and I'm 78. But I say 77 because it's got a better ring to it. How old are you? 77. 78? Oh, you're an old man. No, but I have a lot of good memories. That height right there, he was a friend of mine. He was a contractor, and I was a painter. You know, I had my own business painting and that, and I worked a lot with him. Yeah. His daughter is buried there. She got killed in a car accident out on Highway 2 and 20. Then he had a little girl. I was godfather for her, and she went to Rochester, and she had a heart like a valve, or back then, and she died. You know, right on there when they were doing it. But today it's so much different. Yeah. The technology is so much different today. So. Yeah. So his wife has passed away. She's there, and the daughter. Okay. No, when you look around, what I really like is in here. When I sit here now, and I can see way down there. Yeah. See. See, and people, well, I'll say this to you, personal opinion, people are scared of the cemetery. Yeah? Well, they're not, I say to them, they're not scared of dying, because every day we live, we die. Yeah. What they're scared of out here is a sudden stop of life. Yeah. Bang, no more. See, that's what they wonder, you know. Yeah. And there's 40 acres right behind there is being developed, you know. When I was on, we were developing it too, so. We have another 40 acres, so we have enough cemetery to go for the next 100 years. Yeah. We average maybe 890 a year that pass away. You know, that's what I went on share. I keep kind of track of it, you know. Yeah. And they're right around 90 a year. I like all the flowers out here now up on the stones, and they can put their flowers on the headstones like they got them. But if you put them on the ground, they pick them up and they give you 2 weeks. Then they ask you to take them off if you want them. If you don't, they're going to pick them up and they pile them up over here by the building. So if anybody wants flowers, come out and get them, say, before they haul them out to the dump. This is a really beautiful thing. Yeah. Just looking at the cross back there. Yeah, now that was put in by Father Wilhelm. Okay. He's the pastor. He's leaving, going to Fargo now. See, and they put he put that in here, and you know, this is a Catholic cemetery. Yeah. I went and told him, Father, you're in the wrong cemetery if you think it's Catholic, because it's not. I said, this is a Devil's Lake Cemetery, not St. Joseph, but they have funeral at St. Joseph Cemetery. All right, because this is supported by tax dollars, and you can't have a private, you know. Yeah. So it's hard to get it across. But I mean, he's got that. They have Mass on Memorial Day out here, you know, and they have Mass there on Memorial Day, Veterans Day. They come out, you know, on that. Yeah, the KCs, 4th degree KCs have paid for the statue, you know, the cross and that.
Can you tell me about this cross?
Yes, this whole complex started with Father Wilhelm. And the altar in that comes from the church at Minnewacan. When they closed it up, they took the altar, and the people come to Devil's Lake, and they brought the altar over here and set this all up here, the altar in that. And then the cross in that is done by the 4th degree KCs, donated by Earl Kurtz. I see that on there. And they put all this up here. So they have Mass on different holidays and that out here. See, but the cemetery used to be the Catholic part and the Protestant part. Now it's the Devil's Lake Cemetery. See, you can be buried any place you want, you know, out here. So Father Wilhelm is kind of the big push out here and that there. It's very nice. Then if you look good, if we go to look to the east here more, there's the new part of the cemetery being developed. This here is 40 acres that was bought when I was on the city commission for the cemetery. This was bought back in the early 70s. See, and now today it was developed, but now that you can see the grass is high and stuff, but I mean, they're working on it now to get it like the rest of it, because within a short time they're going to start using that part out there, see. And the big cross down there is setting, I put that in there, and I was going to get, before I went off there, I was going to get a sculpture of Jesus hanging on the cross out of wood. And I had a sculpture, you know, on that there. Well, time ran out and I didn't get it done, but I still may get it done. So it's very nice, like I say, someday, like I said, the city don't have to worry about a place for a cemetery. It's already there for them, see. In 1976, when I was on the city commission, we put this in for the honoring our veterans for World War I, World War II, the Korean conflict, and Vietnam era. They call them, they weren't wars, they were just a time in life, you know, but now they've changed it to wars, seeing that there. So we put this in, and then the other war there they put in, and I believe the fellow that built this was Joe Kraft for me. He donated the time and the bricking at the, he has Lake Ready Mix in town that laid the brick and stuff for us. And it was no charge, and the benches came from Lloyd Peterson. He just gave us the benches and that. See, and before the statue was here, now we got it all in one. So when they have Memorial Day services, it's all held right here. And I would say about the time this other two, the wars over there now, will probably fill them two spaces up. Here's the other two babies. This is hard for me to walk around on even. And I fall switch. I have diabetes. And I have the arthritis in my feet. And I got no more sensation about falling. I'll just fall. See. That's why, you know, I'd have a heck of a time without this. But this here, more are Catholics, Germans, they're mostly all German in here and that, you know. Back in the old days. See, that's where these steel crosses come in, all this stuff. You go to Fulda, you'll find them all over there, yeah.
I've seen a lot of pictures with the project coordinator, my boss, I guess,
yeah.
has been out there when I was doing this.
Now, a story.
Okay.
I was told a story back in the old days when the bootlegging went on.
Yeah.
You can take them 4 bolts out of the corner, take that plate off. And the bootleggers used to hide their booze into there when they come. Yeah.
Under this one?
Yeah, well, any of them. Any ones, right? Go ahead. That's hollow now. It just tap it once. Yeah, tap it. They're all like that. Say.
You have to tell that story.
That's what I'm told.
Yeah?
Back in the early days when there was prohibition and not that you can have booze, they smuggled the booze in from Canada.
Okay.
See, they'd come and take these off, and the guys knew which stone, monument was going to be. They'd take them screws out and they'd hide the booze in there, the cans, silver cans of alcohol. Okay, now this here is my brothers. This here, one boy was born between my 2 older brothers, and the one baby died a couple days later, and then my brother Julius is a twin. This is his twin that's buried here also, and he lived to be about 6 weeks old. So the 2 boys are buried right here, the Kurtz babies. My dad put them here. So that's out of 13 kids now. I was telling this young lady, since I had the cemetery and stuff, monuments like this here, back in the Prohibition days, they're all through the cemetery here. They're all hollow inside. And they told me back in the Prohibition that the bootleggers used to bring their alcohol from Canada, and they'd hide them in these statues and tell the guy, the bootleggers in town, where the statue is at, who's in it, and then these screws come out. These 4 screws come out of there, and they'd hide it inside. And the boys from town used to come out, and they'd go to that statue where the alcohol was at, and they'd take it out. That's what I've been told.
And are they hollow?
Yeah. They're all hollow inside. And I say out here, if you get over in there, you look at the stone, average age, if you average, be about 40,
Really?
that they live to be 40 years old.